Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to the Football Appreciation YouTube channel. Now, I feel like with the Euros, Nelson Semedo has been getting a lot of criticism, and I mean a lot. Like if you go on Twitter and search Nelson Semedo, it's just people bantering him and saying how terrible he is and that he's an awful footballer, blah, blah, blah. And look, this video is not going to be me trying to say that Nelson Semedo is worth £37 million. I know this is with add-ons, but this is not what this video is going to be. I fully acknowledge we overpaid. But I think, it's stuff like this that annoys me, right? Like, Nathan Jude is a respected Wolves journalist, and he's just digging him out on Twitter for no reason. If we're being totally honest, if this was Connor Cody in the Euros and he had a howler, would Nathan Jude be tweeting stuff like this? I don't think he would. And this is the issue I have with kind of the criticism people give Nelson Semedo. I don't feel like it's that fair. Like, I'll get into Nelson Semedo's deeper underlying numbers in a minute, but even if you look at it at like a really baseline level, right? This was our most used 11 last season in terms of minutes played. Name how many of those players, let's just remove Semedo, how many of those 10 players were better than him, like categorically, across the season? I don't think any of the other defenders were. None of the midfielders were, because everyone admits midfield is our weakest area. Everyone slagged off Adama the whole year, and everyone slagged off Fabio Silva for the whole year. And obviously Pedro Neto was player of the year. So by that logic, he's our second best player, right? And if you look at the Premier League table, right? I know people will go, yeah, he's a big money sign and blah blah blah, but you have to acknowledge context. And he's come into such a bad Wolves side. If you look at expected points, in the Premier League last season, the one that just went. Look at some of the dross we are down there with, and based on expected goals, we're the fifth worst side in the Premier League. And this is why I have an issue when people compare Nelson Semedo to Matt Doherty. They go, oh, he's only got 1 goal, 1 assist. Matt Doherty got 8 goals, 8 assists, or whatever it was. If this is the Premier League table from the season, last season, so where we finished 7th and we're in the Europa League. In terms of our defence, we had the second best defence based on expected goals, which is mental. And based on expected goals against, and based on expected goals, we had the 7th best attack. That's dropped off so much. And look, you could perfectly make the argument and go, that's all Semedo's fault. But let's be honest, it's not. He's just in a worse side. And even if you take all of that into account, he's still been pretty good. I'm not going to sit here and try and make out that he's a £37 million fullback, but the one thing that Semedo does have, and you can't deny it, is he's amazing on the ball, and he carries us up the pitch. Look, there's obviously weaknesses in Semedo's game. He's not great in the air. He's not an incredible defender, obviously. The only real standout number he has is his pressures, right? But that's not a bad thing. It shows he's working hard. He's not being lazy, and that's something that people always used to associate with Matt Doherty, right? And when you look at progressive carries and dribbles, which I know aren't necessarily the main thing for a fullback, but I think when you're playing as deep as we were last season, you need an outlet, because it kind of just felt like a lot of the time boot it up to Adama. And I don't feel like give Semedo credit for is the amount of times he got the ball really deep and took a few men on and carried us up the pitch, because we were so deep. No one in midfield was carrying the ball, and Semedo was the only guy that was really doing that, and I think his numbers reflect that. These sort of numbers are like winger sort of numbers that he's putting up. And sure, a lot of his passes aren't necessarily progressive passes that are, in the final third, but you can just attribute that to the team being quite deep. And even still, he's got a pretty high completion rate for his passing, even though he's playing a pretty low side. Like, if you look at that Premier League table again from this season, there was 4 teams worse than us in the Premier League based on expected points: Burnley, Palace, West Brom, and Sheffield United. Let's be totally honest with ourselves. Are there any fullbacks in those sides that are really putting up these sort of numbers? There aren't. There just aren't. And I don't think he's done anything wrong himself. Like, if you go into his deeper numbers, right? Look, I'm not going to sit here and try and make out his attacking numbers are great. But when he does shoot, he's getting them on target. It's not like he's wasting big chances. He's just not really getting them. I don't feel like he's... with Matt Doherty, it felt like he had a chance every game. That's not Matt Doherty being some really intelligent footballer. It's just that's how the system worked, and it's kind of changed this season. He's pretty useful on the ball. At short range. He never really gives the ball away in tight areas. Sure, that drops off when it gets into his longer range passes, but that's literally the case with every fullback in Europe. I don't think him on the ball. He's clearly an upgrade on Matt Doherty. He's way better on the ball. I don't think anyone can deny that. And things like this, right? Passes under pressure. So that's when an opposition is making a press, so this pressure stat here, when someone's doing that to him, how much he's holding the ball, he's in the top 8% in Europe. Like, he's calm on the ball. When someone presses him, he will make the pass, or at least most of the time anyway. And to me, that suggests that even though he's in bad situations, he's dealing with them most of the time. And of course, there are some times, like when Pepe done him that one game, and in the Jack Grealish against Aston Villa, of course, it's not always going to work. But when you've got so much coming against you, it's always going to work. It's not perfect. This is what happened in the Portugal game. Everyone kind of slagged him off and went, he can't handle it, blah, blah, blah. When it's just him by himself, eventually you are going to give the ball away when there's like 3 guys pressuring you. It's just how it works. And, all these passing numbers are pretty good for a fullback in a bad side. We are not a good side. We're the 5th worst side in the Premier League last season, based on expected points. We're not a good side. And all these numbers on the ball are pretty good. And his attacking numbers aren't terrible either for someone that low, in my opinion anyway. You can disagree with that all you want. And it's the same with his defensive numbers. None of them are terrible. They're not great, but his one-on-ones, dribblers tackle, that's the amount of time someone tries to dribble and then he stops that. 1 a game, I think that's pretty good. It's in the top 13% in Europe. Again, his pressure numbers are really good and he's a pretty good presser, which that's probably a tactical thing. Anyone can be taught to press, but he still has it. You can't deny him from doing that. And again, in the top 15% in Europe for blocking shots, he's clearly getting in the way of things. It's not, people say that thing where, he doesn't block crosses enough. I think a lot of that's down to the fact that, first of all, a lot of the ones he doesn't block just seem to go in, so it kind of sticks in your brain. But also there's just no one else stopping him. It just feels like it's him on his own. If you look at his dribble numbers and his carry numbers, this is why I like Nelson Semedo so much. And it's what I was saying before. Obviously this will change under Bruno Lage, hopefully, but it kind of just felt like Semedo was our only outball in that back 5. And the midfield too. It felt like he was the only guy that could carry the ball up. And all his numbers reflect that. The fact that these are all green, pretty much all these numbers, bar nutmegs and missed controls, by the way, and dispossessed. Those are all good things to be bad at. I mean, nutmegs, who cares? Like, it's an irrelevant stat. It's just there for a bit of fun, right? But miscontrolling the ball and getting dispossessed are good things to be low at, right? Everything else is in the green. Like, to me, what these stats say is he's a pretty good fullback in a bad side. That's just what this suggests to me. He's good on the ball. He can carry a ball. He doesn't really give it away that often. But all his flaws to me just suggest it's more of a system thing. I think if you put Nelson Semedo in, in West Ham, Leeds or Leicester or Villa, one of the better teams from last season, these numbers would, one, be even higher because they'd be on the ball more. But also, he wouldn't look as exposed. There's nothing in his numbers to me. He's not great in the air. Fine. And he's giving away cool pens, but when you look at all these numbers, and I'm sure the Wolves analysts have more than what I do. I'm just an idiot, right? But all his numbers to me suggest he's a pretty good footballer. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not. He's not great in the air. You want his blocks and his interception to be a bit higher. I fully acknowledge that, and you do want him to score more goals and get more assists. But I think given the context of, and again, he's not worth this fee. Let me make that perfectly clear. I'm not saying that. But I think some of the abuse he gets from Wolves fans, from Wolves journalists, it just feels very, very harsh. And none of his numbers really suggest that he deserves any of that criticism, in my opinion. And I think next season will be a determiner for Semedo, because he'll probably be in a back 4. Let's just pretend Cody's a midfielder for a second. He'll probably be in a back 4. He'll probably be in a more possession-based side, and he'll probably have more license to get forward, and we'll see if he adapts to that. Let me know what you think of Semedo in the comments. I really like Semedo. I don't think he's done anything wrong. I think the amount of abuse he gets is ridiculous for both Portugal and for Wolves personally. I think he's a pretty, really good fullback, especially on the ball and carrying us up the pitch. Let me know what you think in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and yeah, peace.